I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this message travels. My son called me yesterday. Mom, he said, his voice bright and cheerful. I'm getting married tomorrow. By the way, I withdrew all the money from your bank accounts and sold your house. Thanks for everything. Bye. I just sat there, phone in my hand, and then I started laughing. He had no idea. The house he just sold, it wasn't even the one I lived in. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Chloe Morrison. I'm 62 years old, and I thought I'd seen everything life could throw at me. I live in a modest neighborhood in suburban Ohio, work part-time at the Henderson Public Library, enjoy my quiet routine of morning coffee, tending my rose garden, and Thursday book club with my friend Patricia. My son Riley is 34, smart, ambitious, maybe too ambitious. His father, my husband Robert, died when Riley was 12. Heart attack. One moment we were a family of 3. The next it was just me and a confused, angry little boy who'd lost his hero. I raised Riley alone, worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I was a secretary at Morrison & Associates law firm during the day, cleaned offices at night, took weekend shifts at the grocery store when I could get them. I wore the same 3 outfits on rotation for 5 years, never bought new furniture, drove a 1998 Honda Civic with a cracked windshield I kept meaning to fix. Every dollar I didn't spend on essentials went into 2 places: Riley's future and my savings account. Riley never went without. Piano lessons, summer camps, college prep courses. When he got into Ohio State, I cried with pride. When he graduated with honors in finance, I felt like every sacrifice had been worth it. He got a good job at Westbrook Financial, met a girl, moved into a nice condo downtown, called me once a week, usually Sundays. Our relationship was cordial. Loving, I thought, but distant. I told myself that was normal. He was building his life. I'd done my job, raised him right, let him fly. Looking back now, I see the signs I missed. The first red flag appeared 3 months ago. It was a Tuesday evening. I was reorganizing the history section at the library when my phone rang. Riley. Hey, Mom. His voice had that smooth, practiced quality he used with clients. How are you? Fine, sweetheart. Just at work. What's up? I was thinking about you last night. You're living alone in that house, managing bills, all those accounts. He paused. It's a lot for one person, you know. My stomach tightened slightly. I manage just fine, Riley. I've been paying bills for 40 years. I know. But Mom, you're 62 now. Things can slip through the cracks. What if you miss a payment? What if something happens to your credit? Riley, my credit is excellent, always has been. Sure, but... Another pause, longer this time. Look, I want to help. Let me set up automatic payments for you. Link your accounts to my system. That way I can monitor everything. Make sure nothing gets missed. I stood there in the quiet library, holding a copy of the History of Ohio Agriculture in one hand, phone in the other. You want access to my bank accounts. Not access, Mom, just oversight. You'd still control everything. I'd just be there as backup, for your peace of mind. Something in his tone felt off, too casual, too rehearsed. But he was my son, my only child. The boy I'd rocked through nightmares after his father died. The teenager I'd helped with calculus homework at midnight. The young man I'd been so proud of at graduation. Surely I could trust him with this. I need to think about it, I said. Of course, no pressure, just want to help. His voice brightened. Actually, I'm coming by this weekend. We can talk about it then. I'm bringing someone I want you to meet. Someone... Her name's Vanessa. We've been dating for 8 months. I think you'll really like her. My heart did a little flip. Riley had dated before, but he'd never wanted me to meet anyone. This felt significant. I'd love to meet her, I said, meaning it. Great. See you Saturday, Mom. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and stood there for a moment, book still in hand. Around me, the library was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant click of Mrs. Patterson's keyboard at the front desk. I should have been excited. My son was bringing home a girlfriend. This was a good thing. So why did I feel uneasy? I pushed the feeling away and got back to work. Saturday came warm and bright. I spent the morning cleaning my house, the real one, the one I actually lived in. The one at 428 Maple Drive. It's not fancy. A modest 2-bedroom colonial with cream-colored siding and hunter green shutters. Small front porch with 2 rocking chairs. The rose garden I'd been cultivating for 15 years along the side yard. Inside, everything was neat but worn. The furniture was the same stuff Robert and I had bought when we first got married. The kitchen appliances were outdated but functional. I'd never been one for unnecessary spending. But it was mine. Mortgage-free for the past 3 years. Safe. Secure. I made Riley's favorite pot roast with carrots and potatoes. Baked an apple pie from scratch. Set the dining table with my good dishes, the ones I'd inherited from Robert's mother. They arrived at 1 o'clock. Riley got out of the driver's side of a sleek black BMW I didn't recognize. Must be new. He looked good, fitted suit, expensive haircut, confidence in his posture. The passenger door opened and out stepped Vanessa. She was beautiful. Late 20s, maybe 26 or 27. Tall and slender in tailored cream pants and a silk blouse. Dark hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail. Designer sunglasses. Heels that clicked sharply on my driveway. "Mom," Riley hugged me warmly. "You look great." "So do you, sweetheart." I turned to Vanessa and extended my hand. "You must be Vanessa. I'm Chloe. It's so nice to meet you." She took my hand briefly. Her grip was cool, firm. "Mrs. Morrison, Riley talks about you all the time." Something in her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, but I pushed the thought away. First meetings were always awkward. We went inside. Riley immediately started showing Vanessa around like he owned the place. "This is where I grew up. That's the couch where Dad and I used to watch football. That's the kitchen where Mom made breakfast every morning before school." I watched them from the doorway. Vanessa's eyes moved over everything. The worn carpet, the outdated fixtures, the old family photos on the walls. "It's cozy," she said finally. We sat down in the living room. I brought out iced tea and the cookies I'd made. "So, Vanessa," I said, settling into my chair, "Riley mentioned you work together." "I'm in marketing at Westbrook," she said, crossing her legs elegantly. "Riley's in financial planning. That's how we met Company Mixer last year." "She's brilliant," Riley said, beaming. "Already made junior director, youngest in the department." "That's impressive," I said, and meant it. Vanessa smiled. "I work hard. I believe in setting goals and achieving them." She looked around the room again. "This neighborhood is nice. Very established. Real estate values must be pretty strong here." There it was, a subtle shift in the conversation. "I suppose so," I said carefully. "I've lived here for 30 years. Never really thought about selling." "Oh, of course not." Vanessa leaned forward slightly. "But it must be a lot of work. Big house for one person. Yard maintenance, repairs, property taxes." Riley jumped in. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about, Mom. The financial planning thing." "Riley, let's eat first," I said, standing up. "Everything's ready." Over pot roast, the conversation flowed more easily. Vanessa talked about her family parents still in Kentucky. Father worked in a coal mine before it closed. Mother cleaned houses. Vanessa had put herself through college on scholarships. I found myself warming to her. She'd worked hard, pulled herself up. I understood that. But then as I was clearing plates, I overheard them talking in low voices in the living room. "Has to be worth at least $300,000. Maybe more." "Vanessa, not now. I'm just saying, she's living alone in all this space. It's wasteful. She loves this house." "Riley, be practical. She's 62. How long before she needs assisted living? Better to sell now while the market's strong." My hands froze on the plates. They were talking about my house. About me. Like I was already incapable of making my own decisions. I walked back into the living room and they immediately fell silent. "Everything okay?" Riley asked, smile too bright. "Fine," I said. "Just wondering if you two want pie." After dessert, Riley pulled out his laptop. "Mom, I brought those forms I mentioned for the automatic bill pay setup. It'll just take a minute to fill out." I looked at the screen. Bank routing numbers, account numbers, access permissions. "Riley, I really don't think—" "Mom, please, I worry about you. Let me do this one thing." His eyes were so earnest, so sincere. Behind him, Vanessa watched with an expression I couldn't quite read. I thought about all the years I'd sacrificed for him, all the times I'd said yes when I should have said no, all the boundaries I'd blurred because he was my son and I loved him. "I need to think about it," I said firmly. "This is a big step." Riley's jaw tightened slightly. "Mom," I said I need to think about it. Vanessa stood up smoothly. Of course, Mrs. Morrison. It's a big decision. Riley, we should probably get going anyway. I have that work thing tonight. They left soon after. Riley hugged me at the door. I'll call you this week, okay? Think about what I said. I watched them drive away in that expensive BMW, and I stood on my porch for a long time feeling something I couldn't quite name. 6 weeks passed. Riley called twice. Both times he brought up the bank account situation. Both times I deflected. Then on a Sunday morning in late October, I poured my coffee and sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop. This was my routine Sunday morning financial check-in. I logged into my savings account first. Balance $1,247.82. I stared at the number, blinked, refreshed the page. $1,247.82. That couldn't be right. Last month I'd had $127,438.50 in that account. Money I'd been saving for 37 years. Money from Robert's life insurance. Money from bonuses, tax returns, every spare dollar I'd managed to set aside. My hands started shaking. I clicked on transaction history. September 15th, transfer to Riley Morrison, $40,000. September 22nd, transfer to Riley Morrison, $35,000. October 1st, transfer to Riley Morrison, $30,000. October 8th, transfer to Riley Morrison, $22, $109.91.50. Gone. All of it. Gone. I couldn't breathe. The kitchen felt too small, too hot. I checked my checking account with numb fingers. Balance $53.17. The Social Security payment wasn't due for another week. I had $53 to my name. I called the bank. My fingers kept hitting the wrong numbers. Had to start over 3 times. Henderson Community Bank, this is Jessica. How can I help you? This is Chloe Morrison. My voice sounded strange, distant. I think there's been a mistake with my account. Let me pull up your information, Mrs. Morrison. Keyboard clicking. Okay, I have your accounts here. What seems to be the problem? My savings account. It's showing a balance of $1,200, but I had over $127,000. More clicking. A pause. Mrs. Morrison, I'm showing several large transfers from your savings account over the past month, all authorized through your online banking portal. I didn't authorize anything. The transfers were made to an account belonging to... More clicking. Riley Morrison, is that your son? The room tilted. Mrs. Morrison, are you still there? Yes, I whispered. Yes, I'm here. These transfers were all processed through your login credentials. If you're saying you didn't authorize them, we'll need to start a fraud investigation immediately. Fraud investigation. Against my own son. Mrs. Morrison, I need to call you back. I hung up. Sat at my kitchen table for 3 hours. Didn't move. Couldn't move. How could he? Why would he? I had given him everything. Everything. I'd worn shoes with holes in them so he could have new sneakers. I'd eaten peanut butter sandwiches for dinner so he could have meat. I'd worked myself to exhaustion so he could go to college debt-free. This was how he repaid me. My phone rang around noon. Riley's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Some part of me that still hoped this was all a terrible mistake. Hey, Mom? His voice was bright, excited. Great news, I'm getting married tomorrow. The words didn't make sense at first. Vanessa and I decided not to wait. We're having a ceremony at the Riverside Country Club tomorrow afternoon. Isn't that exciting? I couldn't speak, couldn't form words. Mom, you there? Riley. My voice came out hoarse. My bank accounts. A pause, then a laugh. Casual, easy, like we were discussing the weather. Oh, that. Yeah, I needed the money for the wedding and for our new start together. Don't worry, Mom. You'll be fine. You've got Social Security coming in. That should cover your expenses. The kitchen walls seemed to be closing in. You stole from me. Stole, Mom, come on. I'm your son. That money was going to be mine eventually anyway. I just needed it now. His tone shifted slightly, becoming defensive. Vanessa and I are building a life together. We need capital, you understand? I understand that you stole $127,000 from your mother. Don't be dramatic. Now he sounded annoyed. Look, there's something else. I sold the house, too. The words hit me like a physical blow. I sold your house. Had power of attorney from those documents you signed last year. Remember when you were in the hospital with pneumonia, you gave me permission to handle your affairs. I tried to remember. Last November. The hospital. Fever so high I couldn't think straight. Riley visiting with papers. You said those were insurance forms, I whispered. They were power of attorney documents. Same thing, basically. Anyway, closing was yesterday. Got $340,000 for it. Great price, actually. The money's going toward a down payment on our new condo in Columbus. Much nicer area. You'll love it. Riley, Oh, and you have 30 days to move out. The buyers want to get in before the holidays. But don't worry, we'll help you find a nice apartment. Something affordable on your Social Security. He paused. Look, I gotta go. Caterer's calling. We'll talk after the honeymoon. We're thinking Hawaii. 3 weeks. Bye, Mom. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in my hand, the afternoon sun streaming through my kitchen window. And then slowly I started to smile. Then the smile became a chuckle. Then the chuckle became laughter. I laughed until tears rolled down my cheeks, until my sides hurt, until I couldn't breathe. Riley thought he'd won, thought he'd outmaneuvered his simple, trusting mother. He had no idea what he'd just done, because the house he'd just sold, the one he thought was mine, the one he'd gotten $340,000 for, that wasn't the house I lived in. It was my rental property at 1247 Oak Street, the one I'd bought 15 years ago as an investment, the one currently occupied by Tom and Sarah Henderson and their 3 kids who had 18 months left on their lease. My real house, this house, the one I was sitting in right now, was titled under the Robert Morrison Family Trust, set up by my late mother-in-law 20 years ago when she died and left everything to me and Riley. I was the trustee, the beneficiary. But the house wasn't in my personal name. Riley had grown up here, lived here for 18 years, but he'd never understood the legal structure behind it. When I'd bought the Oak Street rental property 15 years ago, I'd kept it simple, titled it in my own name for tax purposes. Riley must have assumed that Modest Rental was my only property. He'd just fraudulently sold a house full of tenants to unsuspecting buyers. The legal nightmare waiting for him would be spectacular. But my stolen savings, that was different. That hurt. $127,000 represented security, freedom, the promise that I'd never be a burden to anyone. And my own son had taken it, stolen it, to fund his wedding to a woman who'd looked at my home like a real estate investment. The laughter died. I sat at my kitchen table and forced myself to think clearly, rationally. What had I actually lost? The rental property would explode in Riley's face. The Hendersons had 16 months left on their lease. They had rights. The buyers would discover them immediately. Riley would face lawsuits, fraud charges, possibly criminal prosecution. But my savings, that was gone. Really gone. I stood up, walked to my filing cabinet, pulled out the folder labeled Oak Street Property, inside the lease agreement. Signed by Tom Henderson. 18 months remaining. Security deposit receipt. My deed to the property. Next folder, 428 Maple Drive, trust documents. The house I lived in. The house Riley thought he'd sold. But this house was mine. Safe. Protected. I'd never given Riley power of attorney. Whatever documents he had were either forged or obtained through deception when I was barely conscious with fever. I made myself a fresh cup of coffee, sat back down, started making a list. 1. Report theft to police. 2. Contact bank fraud department. 3. Hire lawyer. 4. Inform the Hendersons. 5. Gather evidence. But as I wrote, my hand slowed. Did I want to send my own son to prison? The thought made me physically ill. Despite everything, he was still Riley. Still the little boy who'd crawled into my bed during thunderstorms. The teenager who'd made me Mother's Day cards. The young man I'd been so proud of. Then I remembered his voice on the phone. Cheerful. Casual. You'll be fine. You've got Social Security. As if he'd done nothing wrong. As if stealing his mother's life savings and trying to sell her house was just a minor inconvenience for me to deal with. What kind of man had I raised? My phone buzzed. Text from Patricia Reynolds, my neighbor and best friend for 15 years. Maggie saw a for sale sign at your rental on Oak Street yesterday. Then it was gone this morning. Everything okay, I texted back, long story. Coffee tomorrow. Need your advice. My place. 9 a.m. I'll make scones. I smiled despite everything. Patricia was a retired paralegal. Smart, sensible, exactly who I needed right now. That night I barely slept. Kept replaying Riley's words. The casual way he'd said I sold your house. The cheerful announcement about his wedding. By morning I'd made my decision. I wouldn't go to the police immediately. Instead I'd gather every piece of evidence. Document every crime. Build an irrefutable case. Then I'd confront Riley. Give him one chance. One single chance to make full restitution voluntarily. One chance to prove he was still my son and not the stranger who'd laughed while robbing his mother. Patricia Reynolds lived 3 houses down from me. Same age, same generation. She'd been a paralegal for Morrison & Associates, the same firm where I'd been a secretary. We'd become friends over terrible break-room coffee and shared lunch breaks. She'd retired 5 years ago. Now spent her time gardening, doing crossword puzzles, and volunteering at the library with me. I arrived at 9 on Monday morning. Patricia took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "Oh, honey, whatever it is, we'll figure it out." Over scones and coffee, I told her everything. Patricia's expression went from concern to shock to cold fury. "That bastard," she said when I finished. "Excuse my language, but that absolute bastard. He's my son. He's a criminal." Patricia's voice was sharp. "Chloe, you know I love you. We've been friends for 15 years. But you need to hear this. What Riley did wasn't just wrong. It's illegal. Multiple felonies. I know. Do you? Because the way you're talking, it sounds like you're already making excuses for him." I looked down at my coffee cup. "He's all I have, Patricia." "No." She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "You have me. You have your book club friends. You have your dignity and your self-respect. What you don't have is a son who loves you. Because love doesn't steal. Love doesn't betray." The words hurt because they were true. "What do I do?" I whispered. Patricia squeezed my hand. "First we call my friend David Thornburg, best lawyer I know. Then we document everything. Every transaction, every conversation, every piece of evidence. And then we make Riley face what he's done. He's getting married tomorrow." "Good. Let him enjoy his wedding. It'll be the last happy day he has for a long time." David Thornburg's office was in a brick building downtown. I'd met him through Patricia. They'd worked together for years. He'd come to my book club a few times. Quiet man. Kind eyes. Sharp mind. I sat across from him at his mahogany desk, my folder of documents between us. He read through everything silently, occasionally made notes. His expression grew darker with each page. Finally, he removed his reading glasses and looked at me. "Chloe, this is worse than Patricia described. Your son didn't just steal from you. He forged legal documents, committed fraud against multiple parties, falsely sold property he didn't own." He paused. "If prosecuted fully, he could face 10 to 15 years in federal prison." The number hit me like a punch to the gut. 15 years. Wire fraud, identity theft, elder abuse, real estate fraud. These are all federal crimes. David leaned forward. "I need you to understand the severity of what he did. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was calculated, premeditated fraud. He said I signed power of attorney papers in the hospital." "Did you?" I thought back. "I don't know. I had a fever of 104. I was on heavy medication. Riley visited with papers. He said they were insurance forms." David made another note. "If he obtained your signature under false pretenses while you were incapacitated, that's another crime. Medical exploitation." "What are my options?" "Several." David ticked them off on his fingers. 1, file a police report. Start criminal proceedings. Let the district attorney handle it. 2, file civil suits for the return of your money. This won't involve criminal charges, but will take years and may not recover everything. 3, confront Riley privately. Give him a chance to return everything voluntarily before involving authorities. "What do you recommend?" David was quiet for a moment. "Professionally, option 1. He committed serious crimes. He should face consequences. But," he looked at me with kind eyes, "you're his mother. That complicates things. If you want to give him a chance to make this right first, I understand. Just know that if he refuses, you'll need to follow through with prosecution. Otherwise, he'll just do it again." "How long do I have to decide?" "Not long. The bank is already investigating the fraudulent transfers. The title company for the house sale will discover the problem soon. Once those investigations start, the decision may be taken out of your hands. Then I need to move quickly. Yes, I stood up. File the fraud report with the bank. Contact the title company. But hold off on the police report for now. I want to talk to Riley first. Give him one chance. And if he refuses, then we proceed with everything. Full prosecution. David nodded. I'll get started today. Chloe, I'm sorry you're going through this. Thank you, David. As I left his office, my phone rang. Riley. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, I listened to the message. Mom, the bank called me about some fraud investigation. What's going on? Call me back. His voice wasn't cheerful anymore. It was worried. Confused. Good. Let him worry. That afternoon, I drove to Oak Street, the rental property. It was a small house. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, white siding with black shutters, neat yard. The Hendersons had lived there for 3 years. Good tenants. Always paid on time. Took care of the place. I parked across the street and called Tom Henderson. Mrs. Morrison, is everything okay? Tom, I need to talk to you about something. It's important. Are you and Sarah home? Yeah, I just got off work. Sarah's here with the kids. You want to come over? I'll be there in 2 minutes. Tom met me at the door. He was 35, worked construction. Sarah was a nurse. They had 3 kids, ages 7, 5, and 3. Sarah came out of the kitchen wiping her hands on a dish towel. Mrs. Morrison, is something wrong? We sat in their living room. I could hear the kids playing in the backyard. I need to tell you something, and I'm so sorry to bring this trouble to your door. I took a breath. My son sold this house without my permission, without telling me. The sale closed yesterday. Tom and Sarah stared at me. What? Tom said. He forged documents giving himself power of attorney, then sold this property to buyers who don't know you're living here with a valid lease. Oh my God, Sarah whispered. Your lease is still valid, I said quickly. You have 16 months remaining. You're protected by law. The sale was fraudulent. My lawyer is handling it. But I wanted you to know in case the buyers try to contact you. Tom ran his hand through his hair. Jesus, so what happens now? The buyers will discover you're here. They'll likely sue my son for fraud. The title company may sue as well. Your lease remains in effect throughout all of it. You won't lose your home. This is insane, Sarah said. Why would he do this? Money. The word tasted bitter. He needed money for his wedding. Tom's jaw clenched. He tried to kick us out of our home so he could have a fancy wedding. Yes. And stole from his own mother to pay for it. Yes. Tom looked at Sarah, then back at me. Mrs. Morrison, if you need us to testify or give statements or anything, we're here. What your son did, that's not okay. Thank you, Tom. As I drove home, my phone rang again. Riley. Again, I didn't answer. Another voicemail. Mom, seriously, what's going on? The bank is freezing the money from the house sale. They're saying something about fraud. This is crazy. Call me back, please. The panic in his voice should have made me feel guilty. It didn't. That evening, Patricia came over with wine and sympathy. How are you holding up? She asked, settling onto my couch. I'm angry, I said. Angrier than I've ever been. Good. Anger is better than sadness right now. I poured us both wine. I keep thinking about all the times I said no to myself so I could say yes to him. Every vacation I didn't take. Every new coat I didn't buy. Every night I worked late instead of going to bed early. You were a good mother. Was I good mothers raise good sons? I raised a thief. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then my brother stole from our mother 20 years ago. Took $50,000 from her retirement fund. She forgave him. Didn't press charges. Told herself it was a mistake, that he'd learned his lesson. What happened? He did it again 5 years later. Took everything she had left. She died in a county nursing home because she couldn't afford anything better. Patricia looked at me with fierce eyes. Some people only learn through consequences, Chloe. If you let Riley get away with this, you're not helping him. You're enabling him to hurt someone else. The words settled over me like a weight. David said he could face 15 years. And he should. What he did warrants that. He's my son. And you're his mother. The mother he robbed and tried to make homeless. Patricia squeezed my hand. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's right. After she left, I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet. Just the tick of the old clock on the mantel and the distant hum of the refrigerator. I thought about Riley as a little boy, how he'd follow me around the house asking questions about everything. Mom, why is the sky blue? Mom, where do stars come from? Mom, will you always be here? Always, I'd promised him. I'll always be here for you. And I had been, through everything. His father's death, his awkward teenage years, his college stress, his first job. When had I stopped being his mother and become his ATM? When had he stopped being my son and become a stranger? My phone rang. Riley. For the 5th time that day, this time I answered. Mom, finally. He sounded relieved and annoyed in equal measure. What is going on? Why are you telling the bank this is fraud? Because it is fraud, Riley. It's not, Mom, I'm your son. You gave me permission. I never gave you permission to steal $127,000. I borrowed it. We'll pay you back. When in 30 years, silence. Then, look, Vanessa and I are building a life together. We needed capital. You mean you needed to cover your crypto losses. The silence this time was longer, heavier. Who told you about that? Does it matter? You lost $80,000 gambling, and instead of telling me, instead of asking for help, you stole from me to hide it. It wasn't gambling, it was investing. It was theft. My voice rose. You stole from your mother. You forged documents. You tried to sell my house out from under me. That house was going to be mine anyway. Everything you have should go to me. There it was. The truth. Is that what Vanessa told you? I asked quietly. Don't blame her. This was my decision. Was it because you never cared about money until you met her? That's not fair. Fair, you want to talk about fair. I was shaking now. I wore shoes with holes in them so you could have new ones. I ate peanut butter sandwiches so you could have meat. I worked myself to exhaustion so you could graduate college debt-free. And this is how you repay me. Mom, I could have traveled, could have retired early, could have had a life. But I gave you everything instead. Everything. And you stole from me like I was a stranger, like I meant nothing. You're being dramatic. Get out. What? Get out of my life. I don't have a son anymore. I hung up and sat in the silence of my living room, shaking, crying, but also feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Free. The wedding was exactly what I expected. Expensive, showy, paid for with my stolen money. The Riverside Country Club sat on a bluff overlooking the Scioto River. Manicured lawns, stone pathways, a grand ballroom with floor-to-ceiling windows and crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than my car. I arrived early, wore my best dress, navy blue, simple elegant, the one I'd bought for Riley's college graduation and had worn to every important event since. Pearl earrings Robert had given me on our 10th anniversary. My hair neat, makeup understated. I looked like someone's sweet grandmother. Riley had no idea what was coming. The parking lot was already half full. Mercedes, BMWs, Audis. I parked my Honda Civic between a Lexus and a Tesla and walked toward the entrance. White roses everywhere, thousands of them, climbing up trellises, arranged in enormous urns, scattered as petals along the walkway. Each rose probably cost $5. I did the math in my head. $15,000. Just in flowers, my $15,000. Inside the lobby gleamed with marble and gold fixtures. A string quartet played Vivaldi in the corner. Uniformed staff circulated with champagne on silver trays. I took a glass and found my seat. Front row, mother of the groom. Around me, guests filtered in. Riley's colleagues from Westbrook Financial in their designer suits and cocktail dresses. Vanessa's friends, young beautiful, draped in expensive jewelry. A few of Riley's old high school friends I recognized, though they seemed uncomfortable in this crowd. No one from my generation. No one from Riley's childhood. No family besides me. He'd cut away his past like dead branches. The ceremony started at 3 o'clock sharp. Vanessa entered first, walking down an aisle lined with rose petals and candles. Her dress was stunning silk and lace, probably custom-made. The train stretched 15 feet behind her. Her veil sparkled with what looked like actual diamonds. $30,000, I estimated. Maybe more. My $30,000. She reached the altar where Riley stood in a tuxedo that fit him perfectly, his hair styled, his smile wide and confident. He looked happy, genuinely happy. That hurt more than anything. The officiant began. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. I watched my son promise to love and cherish this woman, to be faithful, to honor her all the days of his life, the same son who'd stolen from his mother without a second thought. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Riley pulled Vanessa close and kissed her while the crowd applauded. I clapped too, slow, steady, and I smiled. The reception was in the grand ballroom, tables draped in white linen, gold-rimmed china, crystal glasses, centerpieces of white orchids and roses. I counted 12 tables each seating 10 guests. The math kept running in my head. Venue rental $15,000. Catering $200 per person minimum. Bar service $50 per person. DJ and lighting $5,000. Photography $80,000. Total over $80,000. Plus Vanessa's dress, Riley's tuxedo, the rings, the flowers, the honeymoon to Hawaii he'd mentioned. Every dollar stolen from my life savings. Riley and Vanessa made their entrance to applause and cheers. The DJ announced them as Mr. and Mrs. Riley Morrison, and they danced their first dance to some modern love song I didn't recognize. Vanessa's head on Riley's shoulder, his hand on her waist, both of them glowing with happiness. I watched from my table and felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a cold, distant observation like watching actors in a play. After the first dance, Riley came to my table. "Mom," he pulled me into a hug. "I'm so glad you came. After our phone call, I thought, I wouldn't miss my son's wedding," I said pleasantly. He pulled back, studying my face. "Are you okay?" "You seem different." "Just emotional. It's a big day." Vanessa appeared at his elbow in a cloud of perfume and silk. "Mrs. Morrison, so lovely to see you." Her smile was perfect, practiced. "Thank you for coming. I know things have been complicated." "Complicated," I repeated. "That's one word for it." "About the house situation and the money." Vanessa's hand rested on Riley's arm. "That's all going to work out." Riley explained everything. "It's really for the best. You don't need that big house anymore. We're going to help you find a nice apartment. Something easy to manage." "How thoughtful," I said, my voice like honey. "You two have thought of everything." Riley relaxed slightly. "We have. And Mom, about the bank investigation, can you please call them tomorrow and tell them it's all a misunderstanding? It's really stressing Vanessa out." "Is it?" I looked at Vanessa. "I'm so sorry to stress you on your wedding day." "Well, it's just that Riley's firm is asking questions. And with the house sale being frozen," Vanessa's smile tightened, "it would really help if you could clear this up." "I'll see what I can do," I said. Riley beamed. "Thanks, Mom. I knew you'd understand." He kissed my cheek. "I have to go greet the other guests, but we'll talk more later, okay?" They moved away, hand in hand. I watched them work the room. Vanessa laughing at someone's joke, her hand possessive on Riley's arm. Riley shaking hands, accepting congratulations, basking in the attention. Neither of them looked back at me. During dinner, filet mignon and lobster tail, naturally, I found myself seated next to one of Riley's colleagues from Westbrook Financial. "Steve Gardner," he introduced himself, offering his hand. "I work with Riley in the planning division. You must be so proud of him." "Very proud," I said. "He's accomplished so much." "He really has. Though I have to say this wedding is something else. Must have cost a fortune." Steve took a sip of wine. "Between you and me, I was surprised Riley could afford it. We're not exactly making investment banker money, you know." "Oh, yeah. Don't get me wrong, we do well. But this level of spending," he gestured at the room. "This is trust fund territory. I figured maybe you or Vanessa's family." "Vanessa's family is from Kentucky," I said. "Her father worked in coal mines." Steve's eyebrows rose. "Really, huh? Then Riley must have been saving like crazy. Or," he paused. "Actually, there were rumors a few months back. Something about a bad investment. Crypto, I think." But Riley laughed it off. My heart started beating faster. "Crypto investment. Yeah, one of the guys said Riley lost a bundle when that exchange collapsed. FTX or something similar. But Riley denied it, so..." Steve shrugged. "Probably just office gossip." "How much did people say he lost? 80-90,000, but like I said, probably just rumors." I smiled and changed the subject. But inside pieces were clicking into place. Riley hadn't just stolen from me for the wedding. He'd stolen to cover his losses. to hide his failure, to maintain his image of success. Later, during the cake cutting, a 5-tier monstrosity with sugar flowers and gold leaf, my phone buzzed. Text from David Thornburg Title Company contacted. Major irregularities discovered. Buyers threatening lawsuit. Need to meet ASAP. I typed back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Another buzz. Patricia, how are you holding up, me watching my money get wasted on champagne and caviar? But I'm fine. Patricia, stay strong. Almost over. The DJ called for a mother-son dance. Riley appeared at my table offering his hand. Mom, our dance. I let him lead me to the floor. The DJ played What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, Robert's favorite song. Riley put his arm around my waist, started swaying to the music. This is perfect, isn't it? He said. Everything I dreamed of. It's very impressive, I said. Vanessa planned most of it. She has such good taste. He smiled down at me. I'm really happy, Mom. I can see that. And I want you to be happy too. That's why we're going to help you find a nice place to live. Somewhere safe. Easier to maintain than that big house. The house you sold. His grip on my waist tightened slightly. Mom, can we not do this right now? It's my wedding day. Of course, I apologize. We danced in silence for a moment. Then Riley said, I really do love you, you know, even if I don't say it enough. Everything I've done, it's so I can take care of you, give you a good life. I looked up at my son, at his earnest expression, his sincere eyes, and I wondered if he actually believed that, if he'd convinced himself that stealing from me was somehow for my benefit. The song ended. Riley kissed my forehead. Thanks for being here, Mom. It means everything. He walked away back to Vanessa, who pulled him onto the dance floor for another song. I returned to my table, and I waited. The evening wore on. Toasts, more dancing, more champagne. A dessert bar with chocolate fountains and French pastries. I watched it all with detached fascination, like studying an exotic species in their natural habitat. Around 9 o'clock, as the party reached its peak, Riley and Vanessa stood at the microphone. We just want to thank everyone for being here, Riley set his arm around Vanessa. This day wouldn't be possible without all of you. Vanessa leaned into the microphone. Especially Riley's mom, Chloe. Thank you for your generosity. She raised her glass toward me. We couldn't have done this without you. The room applauded, raised their glasses in my direction. I smiled, raised my own glass in acknowledgement, and thought, you have no idea how right you are. I left before the end of the reception, slipped out quietly while Riley and Vanessa were dancing with their friends, drove home through quiet suburban streets. My house, my real house, was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Inside, I made tea and sat at my kitchen table. Tomorrow, Riley and Vanessa would fly to Hawaii. 3 weeks in paradise. Snorkeling, sunset cruises, 5-star hotels, and when they returned, they'd find a world that had collapsed around them. I felt no guilt, no hesitation, just cold, clear certainty. 3 days after the wedding, Riley and Vanessa showed up at my door. I was in my garden deadheading roses. The November morning was crisp and bright. Perfect weather for gardening. I heard the car door slam. Looked up to see Riley striding across my lawn, Vanessa clicking behind him in heels. Riley's face was flushed with anger. Vanessa's expression was ice. What the hell did you do? Riley demanded before he even reached me. I stood slowly brushing dirt from my gardening gloves. Hello, Riley. Vanessa, I thought you were in Hawaii. We came back early. Riley stopped 3 feet away, breathing hard. The title company froze the money from the house sale. They're saying the power of attorney was forged. They're threatening to press charges. Oh dear, I said mildly. Don't oh dear me. Riley's voice rose. You told them the documents were fake. Were they? You signed those papers in the hospital. I signed insurance forms while I was delirious with fever. I never gave you power of attorney. Vanessa stepped forward. Mrs. Morrison, this is ridiculous. Riley was helping you. You're 62 years old. You can't manage your finances or property anymore. We were doing you a favor. I looked at her, really looked at her. This beautiful young woman who'd helped my son steal from me. A favor, I repeated, by stealing my life savings. It's not stealing if you're too senile to manage it yourself. Vanessa's mask slipped. Derek is your son. Everything you have should go to him eventually anyway. We just needed it now. Riley, I said quietly, not taking my eyes off Vanessa. Is that what you believe too? Riley's jaw clenched. Mom, don't twist this around. You're being unreasonable. Just tell the bank and the title company that you made a mistake. Tell them you authorized everything. But I didn't. Mom, I didn't authorize you to steal $127,000. I didn't authorize you to forge documents and sell a house full of tenants. I didn't authorize you to gamble away $80,000 in crypto and then rob your mother to cover it up. Riley's face went pale. How did you... I know everything, Riley. The crypto losses, the desperate need for money, the lies, all of it. Vanessa grabbed Riley's arm. We need to go. She's obviously not going to help. But Riley didn't move. Mom, please, if you don't drop this, I could go to prison. Yes, I said simply. You could. Is that what you want, your own son in prison? I thought about the question. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. What I want is my son back. The one who called me every Sunday. The one who thanked me for his sacrifices. The one who had integrity. I'm still that person. Are you? Because that person wouldn't have stolen from his mother. Wouldn't have tried to make her homeless. Wouldn't have blamed her for being senile when she objected to being robbed. Riley opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I'll pay you back, he said desperately. All of it. Just give me time. 6 months. A year. We'll take out a loan. You don't have 6 months, Riley. The bank investigation is already underway. The title company has involved their lawyers. The Hendersons are prepared to testify about the fraudulent sale. I paused. And I've hired a lawyer, David Thornburg. He's prepared all the paperwork. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. Am I? Riley looked between us. Mom, please, don't do this. I made a mistake. You made a series of calculated choices. You forged documents. You exploited my illness. You stole systematically over weeks. My voice was steady. This wasn't a mistake, Riley. This was a crime. God, you're heartless. Riley's desperation turned to anger. I'm your son, your only child. How can you do this to me? How could you do what you did to me? I replied quietly. Vanessa pulled at Riley's arm. Come on, we're wasting our time. She's made up her mind. But Riley stood frozen, staring at me. You're really going to send me to prison? I'm going to let the justice system decide what happens. You made your choices. Now you face the consequences. If I go to prison, our relationship is over. Forever. You understand that? I felt tears prick my eyes, but I kept my voice steady. Our relationship ended the day you stole from me and laughed about it on the phone. Riley's face twisted. Fine. Fine. But don't expect me to visit. Don't expect me to call. Don't expect to meet your grandchildren or be part of my life ever again. The threat hit where he intended. Grandchildren. The idea of holding Riley's babies, passing on family stories, being a grandmother. It almost worked. Almost. If you have children someday, I said softly, I hope you teach them better than I taught you. Vanessa practically dragged Riley toward their car, but at the edge of my lawn, Riley turned back. You'll regret this, he shouted. When I'm in prison and you're alone, remember that you chose this. I didn't choose this, I called back. You did. They drove away, tires squealing. I stood in my garden surrounded by roses and let myself cry. That afternoon, David Thornburg called. Chloe, I'm at my office with some new information. Can you come in? What kind of information? The kind that makes this case much stronger and much worse. I drove to his office. David met me at the door, his expression grim. Sit down, he said. I sat. David pulled out a folder. The title company did a full investigation. The power of attorney Riley used was definitely forged, but that's not all. He slid a document across the desk. They found text messages between Riley and Vanessa about the property sale. I read the messages dated 3 months earlier. Riley found Mom's rental documents. Tenants have 18 months left on lease. Need to sell before anyone notices. Vanessa, can you do that legally, Riley? I'll figure it out. Get her to sign something. Vanessa, how Riley down? She was sick last year. Really out of it. I can use that. 2 months later, Riley got Mom's signature on the POA papers. She had no idea what she was signing. Was barely conscious. Vanessa perfect. Now sell the house. Riley working on it. This'll give us enough for the wedding and the condo down payment. Vanessa, what about the tenants, Riley? We'll deal with that later. By the time anyone finds out, we'll have the money. I felt sick. There's more, David said quietly. He pulled out another document. Detective Sarah Williams from the Fraud Division contacted me. They've been investigating Riley for a separate incident at his workplace. What incident? 3 months ago, $15,000 went missing from a client escrow account. Riley had access to that account. David paused. The company didn't prosecute. Riley claimed it was an accounting error and paid it back, but it raised flags. He stole from his clients, too. It appears so, which establishes a pattern of behavior. David leaned forward. Chloe, with these text messages and the workplace incident, the DA will prosecute this aggressively. Multiple felonies, elder abuse, fraud, forgery. Riley is looking at serious prison time. How much time? 8 to 12 years. Possibly more. I couldn't speak. 8 to 12 years of my son's life. There's one other thing, David said. The Hendersons want to file a civil suit against Riley for the emotional distress of nearly losing their home. They're asking if you'll support it. Of course, I heard myself say. They're innocent victims in this. David nodded. I'll let them know. He looked at me with concern. Chloe, are you okay? I don't know, I said honestly. I feel like I don't know anything anymore. That evening, Vanessa came alone. I was making dinner, just soup and bread, nothing fancy, when the doorbell rang. She stood on my porch in a cream-colored suit. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, but her eyes were cold. We need to talk, she said. Woman to woman. Do we? 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking. Against my better judgment, I let her in. But we stayed in the foyer. I didn't invite her further into my home. Look, Vanessa said, her voice controlled. I know you think I'm some gold digger who manipulated your son, but I love Riley. I really do. You have an interesting way of showing it. I'm trying to save him. Her composure cracked slightly. Do you understand what criminal charges will do to him, to his career, to our future? Yes, I said. That's exactly why they need to be filed. You're willing to destroy your son's life over money. I'm willing to let my son face consequences for his actions. Vanessa stared at me, then laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You know what Riley was right about you? You're a selfish old woman who can't stand to see her son happy. I'm a woman who refuses to be stolen from, even by family. You'll regret this, Vanessa hissed. When Riley is in prison and you're alone dying in some nursing home with no one who cares about you, you'll realize you chose money over your own son. I chose myself, I said quietly. Something I should have done years ago. Vanessa's face twisted with rage. You're pathetic. A bitter old woman clinging to money you'll probably die before you can spend. At least Riley and I have a life, a future. What do you have, this sad little house and your sad little life? I opened the door. Goodbye, Vanessa. We'll fight this, she said, stepping onto the porch. We'll get lawyers. We'll prove you're senile, incompetent. We'll take everything from you. You already tried that, I said as he said. It didn't work. I closed the door on her rage. 2 weeks later, the arrest warrant was issued. David called to tell me. The DA filed charges this morning: wire fraud, elder financial abuse, identity theft, forgery, real estate fraud. When will they arrest him? Probably today. They'll process him, set bail, and schedule arraignment. What happens then? Riley's lawyer will try to negotiate a plea deal. Given the evidence, the DA will probably offer something in the range of 5 to 8 years in exchange for guilty pleas. And if he doesn't take the deal, then we go to trial, and with those text messages, he'll likely get more time. I thanked David and hung up, sat at my kitchen table staring at my hands. My son was being arrested, right now, being handcuffed, read his rights, processed like a common criminal, because that's what he was. Patricia came over that evening with wine and dinner. I heard, she said, simply pulling me into a hug. I'm so sorry, honey. We sat on my couch eating pasta she'd brought, drinking wine in silence. Finally, Patricia said, You did the right thing. Did I? Because I don't feel right. I feel like I just destroyed my son's life. He destroyed his own life. You just stopped letting him destroy yours, too. What kind of mother does this? A strong one, a brave one. Patricia squeezed my hand. You protected yourself. That's not wrong, Chloe. That's survival. My phone rang around 8. Unknown number. Hello? Mom. Riley's voice broken and scared. Mom, please. I'm at the county jail. They arrested me. Please. You have to drop the charges. Please. I closed my eyes. Riley. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Everything you said was right. I was selfish and greedy, and I hurt you. He was crying now. Please give me another chance. Please don't let them do this to me. Every maternal instinct in my body screamed to save him, to protect him, to make this all go away. Riley, I said softly, I can't drop the charges. It's out of my hands now. The district attorney is prosecuting. Tell them you don't want to press charges. They'll listen to you. No, they won't. Not with the evidence. Not with the other victims. What other victims? The Hendersons, the home buyers, your company. How many people did you steal from Riley? Silence. I need to go, I said. I'm sorry you're going through this, but you made these choices. Mom, wait. I hung up and sat in silence while Patricia held my hand. The preliminary hearing was 3 days later. I didn't attend. Couldn't. The thought of sitting in a courtroom watching my son in handcuffs was too much. David went and reported back. Riley pled not guilty, he said. His lawyer guy named Richard Baxter is arguing diminished capacity, claiming Riley was under extreme financial stress and not thinking clearly. Will that work? No, not with premeditated text messages showing planning. David paused. The DA offered a plea deal. 6 years in state prison. Full restitution. Riley's considering it. 6 years. Riley would be 40 when he got out. His career destroyed. His marriage probably over. His life completely changed because of choices he made. There's something else, David said. Vanessa filed for divorce yesterday. I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was. Already, citing irreconcilable differences. She's asking for half of everything they own jointly, including any future inheritance from you. I almost laughed. She really is something. She's a survivor, David said. She's cutting her losses and running. That night I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about Riley at 12 sobbing in my arms after his father's funeral. Mom, what if something happens to you too? What if I'm all alone? You'll never be alone, I'd promised. I'll always be here. But I wasn't there now. I was here in my house while he sat in a jail cell. Was I doing the right thing? Patricia had said yes. David had said yes. Tom and Sarah Henderson had said yes. But doubt crept in during the dark hours of the night. What if Riley really was sorry? What if this was rock bottom and he'd learned from it? What if I was destroying any chance of reconciliation? What if I died and he was still in prison and we never made peace? I got up around 3 in the morning, made tea, sat at my kitchen table, and I thought about Robert. What would he have done? Robert had been firm but fair, believed in consequences, but also in redemption. People make mistakes, he used to say. The question is whether they learn from them. Was Riley learning, or was he just sorry he got caught? The text messages suggested the latter, the cold calculation, the exploitation of my illness, the casual way he'd stolen and lied. That wasn't a mistake. That was character, or lack of it. I finished my tea and went back to bed. And when I finally slept, I dreamed of Riley as a little boy holding my hand as we walked through the park. Mom, Dream Riley said, why do bad things happen to good people? Because sometimes good people make bad choices, Dream Me replied. What do we do then? The trial was set for January 15th. 2 months to wait. 2 months of sleepless nights and second guessing. 2 months of Riley calling from jail, begging me to help him. I stopped answering after the 5th call. Christmas came and went. I spent it with Patricia and her family. Her daughter Emma asked where Riley was. He's away, I said simply. Dealing with some legal troubles. Emma Wise at 15 just nodded and squeezed my hand. On Christmas night alone in my house, I looked at the photo albums. Riley at 3 covered in chocolate cake on his birthday. Riley at 7 missing his 2 front teeth. Riley at 12 solemn in his first suit at his father's funeral. Where had I lost him? At what point had my sweet boy turned into a man who could steal from his own mother? Or had he always had this capacity, and I just refused to see it. In early January, something unexpected happened. I was at the library reshelving books in the biography section when a young man approached me. "Mrs. Morrison." I turned. He was about 30, dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt. Nervous energy radiated from him. "Yes, my name is James Tucker. I work with Riley at Westbrook Financial, or I used to." He shifted his weight. "Can we talk, please? It's important." We sat in one of the library's private study rooms. James fidgeted with his coffee cup. "I don't know if Riley ever mentioned me," he started. "We were pretty close at work. Used to get drinks after shifts, talk about investments, that kind of thing." "He never mentioned you," I said honestly. James nodded, looking pained. "Yeah, that makes sense. Because 6 months ago I lent Riley money, $30,000. He said it was for a business opportunity, promised to pay me back in 3 months with interest." My stomach sank. "He never paid you back?" "Not a cent. And when I asked about it, he got angry, said I was being pushy, that these things take time." James looked at me with haunted eyes. "But that's not even the worst part. Last month I found out he'd been using my name to open a line of credit. Forged my signature. Took out $20,000. "Oh my God." "I was going to go to the police, but then I heard about your case, about what he did to you." James's voice cracked. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm so sorry. If I'd reported him sooner, maybe he wouldn't have gotten to you." "This isn't your fault," I said firmly. "None of this is your fault. I want to testify. At the trial. I want the jury to know this wasn't just one bad decision. This is who Riley is. A pattern. I studied this young man who'd trusted my son, who'd been betrayed just like me." "Have you talked to the district attorney?" "Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Make sure you're okay with it." "James, you don't need my permission to tell your truth." He nodded slowly. "I know, but Riley's your son, and I didn't want to make things harder for you than they already are." I reached across the table and touched his hand. "You're a kind person, James. I'm sorry my son took advantage of that." James left with David Thornburg's contact information, and I sat alone in the study room realizing the full scope of Riley's deception was even worse than I'd known. How many other people had he stolen from? How many other lives had he damaged in his quest for money? 2 weeks before the trial, Vanessa's divorce was finalized. She got half of the condo, which was going to be foreclosed anyway, and walked away from everything else. The court documents described Riley as financially insolvent and facing significant criminal liability. Patricia brought over the local newspaper. There was a small article, "Local Financial Advisor Faces Multiple Fraud Charges." They'd used Riley's work photo. He looked successful, confident, like someone you'd trust with your money. "How are you doing?" Patricia asked, watching me read. "I don't know anymore," I admitted. "Some days I'm sure I did the right thing. Other days I feel like a monster." "You're not a monster. You're a survivor." I keep thinking about what Vanessa said, that I'll die alone, that I chose money over my son. You didn't choose money. You chose yourself, your dignity, your right to not be victimized. Patricia sat beside me. "Chloe, I've known you for 15 years. You're one of the kindest, most generous people I've ever met. But kindness doesn't mean letting people hurt you. Even family. Especially family. What if he never forgives me? What if you never forgive him? That matters too." The trial began on a cold January morning. The courthouse was a gray stone building downtown. I arrived at 8:30 dressed in a simple gray suit. David met me at the entrance. "Ready?" he asked. "No, but let's do this anyway." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, rows of benches for observers. Riley sat at the defense table with Richard Baxter. He'd lost weight. His suit hung loose on his frame. His eyes had dark circles underneath. When he saw me, his expression crumbled. He mouthed "Mom," but I looked away. I couldn't. Not yet. The jury filed in. 7 women, 5 men. Ages ranging from 20s to 70s. They looked at Riley with curiosity. At me with sympathy. The judge entered. Honorable Helen Morrison, no relation, but the irony wasn't lost on anyone. "All rise," the bailiff called. The trial began. The prosecutor was Andrea Walsh. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. Her opening statement was devastating. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about betrayal. The betrayal of the most sacred trust, the trust between a mother and her child. Andrea walked slowly in front of the jury. Chloe Morrison worked 2 jobs to raise her son alone. She sacrificed everything so Riley could have opportunities. And when she was elderly, vulnerable, and sick with pneumonia, Riley Morrison exploited that vulnerability. She clicked a remote. Images appeared on a screen. Bank statements showing the transfers. The forged power of attorney. Text messages between Riley and Vanessa. The defendant didn't make a mistake. He planned this fraud for months. He obtained his mother's signature through deception while she was hospitalized. He forged notary documents. He sold a house full of tenants to unsuspecting buyers. And when confronted, he threatened his own mother. Andrea paused, looking at each juror. This isn't just theft. This is elder abuse. This is a son who saw his aging mother not as a person to cherish, but as a resource to exploit. And the evidence will show beyond any reasonable doubt that Riley Morrison is guilty of every charge against him. She sat down. The defense attorney, Richard Baxter, stood up. He was younger than I expected. Expensive suit, confident posture. Members of the jury, what you're about to hear is a tragic story. But it's not the story the prosecution wants you to believe. Baxter walked toward the jury box. This is a story about a son who was worried about his aging mother, who wanted to help her manage finances she was struggling with, who made mistakes, yes, mistakes, but who never intended to harm her. He gestured toward Riley. Riley Morrison isn't a criminal. He's a financial advisor, someone who helps people manage money for a living. When he saw his mother struggling, he tried to help. Did he make errors in judgment? Yes. Did he mishandle the situation? Absolutely. But criminal intent, no. Baxter's voice became softer. And we need to consider something else. Mrs. Morrison was 62 years old when these events occurred. She'd recently been very ill. Is it possible her memory of events isn't entirely accurate? Is it possible she gave permission for things she now doesn't remember? I felt anger rising in my chest. He was calling me senile, confused. The prosecution wants you to believe Riley Morrison is some kind of monster, but he's a son who made mistakes while trying to help his mother. That's not a crime. That's a family tragedy. And it shouldn't be resolved in a criminal courtroom. Baxter sat down. Judge Morrison looked at Andrea Walsh. Call your first witness. The prosecution's case took 3 days. Jessica Torres from the bank testified about the unauthorized transfers. She was young professional, clear in her testimony. Mrs. Morrison called on October 12th, extremely distressed. She said she hadn't authorized any transfers and didn't know why her accounts were empty. Jessica looked at the jury. When we investigated, we found all transfers were made through online banking using Mrs. Morrison's login credentials, but the IP addresses showed they came from Riley Morrison's address. On cross-examination, Baxter tried to suggest I'd given Riley my login information. Isn't it possible Mrs. Morrison shared her password with her son? It's possible, Jessica admitted. But that doesn't authorize him to transfer all her money without her knowledge or consent. Michael Brooks from the title company testified next. The power of attorney document raised immediate red flags, he explained. The notary whose seal appeared on the document, his license had been expired for 6 months at the time of supposed notarization. And when we contacted him, he said he'd never notarized any documents for Riley Morrison. So the document was forged? Andrea asked. Yes, definitively. And what about the property sale itself? The sale was fraudulent on multiple levels. The property had tenants with an active lease which wasn't disclosed. Mr. Morrison didn't actually have legal authority to sell, and the buyers were defrauded of $340,000. Tom Henderson testified about receiving my phone call. She was apologetic, said her son had sold our house without permission or knowledge, that he'd forged documents. Tom's jaw tightened. My wife and I were terrified. We have 3 kids. We thought we were going to lose our home. How did this affect your family? Andrea asked. My youngest started having nightmares. My wife had panic attacks. We were looking at emergency housing, trying to figure out where we'd go. Tom looked at Riley. All because someone wanted money for a wedding. Then came James Tucker. He walked to the stand nervously, avoiding Riley's eyes. James testified about lending Riley $30,000 that was never repaid, about the forged credit application, about how Riley had gotten angry when James asked for his money back. Did Riley ever seem remorseful? Andrea asked. No. He seemed annoyed that I was bothering him about it, like I was being unreasonable for wanting my money back. On cross-examination, Baxter tried to frame it as a business deal gone wrong. So this was a loan between friends. Sometimes those don't work out. It wasn't a loan. It was theft, James said firmly. He forged my signature. That's not a business deal. That's fraud. Then it was my turn. I took the stand on the fourth day, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Andrea Walsh approached gently. Mrs. Morrison, can you tell the jury about your relationship with your son? I took a breath. I raised Riley alone after my husband died. Riley was 12. I worked multiple jobs to provide for him, give him opportunities. I thought we had a good relationship. When did that change? 3 months before his wedding. He asked for access to my bank accounts, said he wanted to help with bill payments. I was hesitant, but he was my son. I trusted him. And what happened? 2 months later, I checked my accounts and found them empty. $127,000 gone, all transferred to Riley. My voice cracked slightly. Andrea gave me a moment. What did you do? I called the bank. They said Riley had made the transfers, so I called him. And what did Riley say? He said he'd withdrawn the money for his wedding, that I'd be fine on Social Security. Then he told me he'd sold my house. I looked at the jury. He said I had 30 days to move out. How did that make you feel? Devastated. Betrayed. He was my son. I'd given him everything. And he'd stolen from me like I was a stranger. Andrea showed me the power of attorney document. Did you sign this? I studied it. My signature was there, but shaky, uncertain. I don't remember signing this specific document. When I was hospitalized with pneumonia, I had a fever of 104. Riley visited with papers. He said they were insurance forms. I was barely conscious. I may have signed something, but I never knowingly gave him power of attorney. Would you have given him power of attorney if you'd been in your right mind? Absolutely not. Andrea showed me the text messages between Riley and Vanessa. I read them, felt sick all over again. Got Mom's signature. She had no idea what she was signing. Mrs. Morrison, what went through your mind when you read these? That my son had deliberately exploited my illness. That this wasn't a misunderstanding or a mistake. It was calculated. Planned. I looked at Riley. It was cruel. Andrea let the words hang in the air. One final question. Do you love your son? The question surprised me. Yes, I'll always love him. But love doesn't mean accepting abuse. It doesn't mean letting someone destroy you. Thank you, Mrs. Morrison. Richard Baxter's cross-examination was aggressive. Mrs. Morrison, you testified you don't remember signing the power of attorney. Isn't it true that your memory from that hospitalization is fuzzy? My memory of specific moments is unclear, but I remember Riley saying the papers were insurance forms. I never would have signed power of attorney. But you might have. You just don't remember. If I had, I would have remembered that. It's too important. Baxter changed tactics. You worked in a law office for years, correct? Yes. So you understand legal documents. You're not some naive elderly person who doesn't understand contracts. Correct. Then isn't it possible you understood exactly what you were signing? That you did give Riley power of attorney and now you're having regrets? I met his eyes. No, that's not what happened. Mrs. Morrison, isn't it true that you resented Riley's engagement, that you didn't like Vanessa? I was wary of Vanessa, but I wanted Riley to be happy. Wary enough to try to sabotage his wedding to punish him for choosing his wife over his mother. Objection. Andrea was on her feet. Argumentative and inflammatory. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Mr. Baxter rephrase. But the damage was done. Baxter had planted the seed. Maybe I was just a bitter mother who couldn't let go. Mrs. Morrison, you're 62 years old, living alone. No close family besides Riley. Isn't it possible you're lonely, that you saw Riley's marriage as losing him? I took a breath. I'm content with my life, Mr. Baxter. Being independent doesn't make me vindictive, and Riley stealing from me isn't about his marriage. It's about his choices. But you chose to prosecute. You could have worked this out privately. Instead, you're trying to send your own son to prison. I'm not trying to send him anywhere. I'm letting the justice system work. Riley made his choices. Now he faces the consequences. Baxter tried a few more angles, but I held firm. When I stepped down, I felt exhausted, drained, but also relieved. I'd told my truth. Now it was up to the jury. The defense case began on day 5. Baxter called several character witnesses. Riley's colleagues who testified he was good at his job, friends who said he was a good person, his old high school teacher who remembered him as a bright student. None of them addressed the actual crimes. Then Vanessa took the stand. I was surprised. She'd divorced Riley. Why would she testify for him? But as she spoke, I understood. Riley was under enormous pressure, Vanessa said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. He'd lost money in investments, was stressed about his career. He wasn't thinking clearly. Did he discuss his plans with you? Baxter asked. He mentioned wanting to help his mother, that she was getting older and needed assistance. He said he was going to handle her finances for her. Did he say he was stealing from her? No, never. He thought he had her permission. He showed me documents she'd signed. I assumed everything was legal. It was a neat performance. Vanessa positioning herself as an innocent bystander, someone who'd been fooled just like everyone else. On cross-examination, Andrea destroyed her. Ms. Cole, you divorced Mr. Morrison 3 weeks ago, correct? Yes. Rather quickly, wouldn't you say, given that you'd just been married 2 months earlier? Our relationship was strained by the legal troubles. Andrea showed the text messages. Ms. Cole, this is a text from you to Riley. Riley, be practical. She's 62. How long before she needs assisted living? Better to sell now. Did you write that? Vanessa paled. That was taken out of context. What context makes it acceptable to discuss selling someone's home without their knowledge? We were just talking hypothetically. Were you? Because here's another text. Everything you have should go to him eventually anyway. We just need it now. That doesn't sound hypothetical. That sounds like a plan. Vanessa couldn't answer. Ms. Cole, isn't it true that you encouraged Riley to steal from his mother, that you participated in this fraud? No, I had no idea. You had no idea despite these texts, despite attending a $80,000 wedding paid for with stolen money, despite planning a Hawaii honeymoon funded by fraud. You thought you could get away with it. And when Riley got caught, you divorced him to save yourself. Vanessa stepped down, her composure shattered. Finally, Riley took the stand. This was the moment everything had been building toward. Baxter needed Riley to be sympathetic, remorseful, human. Riley's direct examination started well. I love my mother, he said, voice shaking. Everything I did, I thought I was helping her. She'd been sick. I was worried about her managing everything alone. When did you decide to access her accounts? After she got pneumonia. She was so sick. I realized she needed help, so I got power of attorney to manage things for her. Did she give you permission? Yes, in the hospital. She signed the papers, said she trusted me. And the house sale? Same thing. She'd mentioned downsizing. I found a buyer, thought I was helping. It was a good story, plausible, if you ignored all the evidence to the contrary. Then Andrea stood for cross-examination, and Riley fell apart. Mr. Morrison, you testified your mother gave you permission to access her accounts. Why did you need permission if, as you claim, she wanted you to help? What? If she wanted your help, why the secrecy? Why not discuss it openly? We did discuss it. Did you? Because your mother testified she refused to give you account information, that you asked multiple times and she said no. She's confused about that. Is she? Or are you lying? Andrea's voice was sharp. Let me read you a text message. Need to get access to Mom's accounts. She's being difficult. Did you write that? Riley hesitated. Yes, but being difficult. That doesn't sound like someone who gave you permission. She was confused. Stop saying she was confused. Andrea's voice rose. Your mother is a sharp, competent woman who worked in legal offices for 20 years. She's not confused. You're just a thief. Objection. Baxter jumped up. Withdrawn. Andrea moved closer to Riley. Let's talk about the power of attorney. You said your mother signed it willingly in the hospital, but the notary whose seal appears on that document says he never notarized anything for you. How do you explain that? There must be a mistake. A mistake or forgery. I don't know how. You don't know how you forged a legal document. Let me help you. Andrea displayed the text messages. Got Mom's signature on the papers. She had no idea what she was signing. You wrote that, didn't you? Riley stared at the screen. You meant exactly what you wrote. You tricked your sick mother into signing papers she didn't understand. Then you forged a notary seal. Then you stole her life savings. Then you tried to make her homeless. I wasn't trying to make her homeless, you needed money. For your crypto losses. For your wedding. For your lifestyle. Andrea's voice dripped with contempt. And you didn't care who you hurt to get it. Riley's face crumbled. I was desperate. I made mistakes. These weren't mistakes. Mistakes are accidental. You planned this for months. You had multiple opportunities to stop, to tell the truth, to make things right. Instead, you stole more, lied more, and when caught, you threatened your own mother. I didn't threaten her. Andrea pulled out her phone, played an audio recording. Riley's voice, drop the charges or we'll have you declared incompetent. We'll put you in a nursing home. We'll make your life hell. The courtroom was silent. Riley sat frozen, his face ashen. No more questions, Andrea said. Closing arguments came the next day. Andrea Walsh addressed the jury with quiet fury. Members of the jury, the evidence in this case is overwhelming. Riley Morrison stole $127,000 from his mother. He forged legal documents. He fraudulently sold property. He threatened his mother when she sought justice. These are not the actions of a confused son trying to help. These are the actions of a criminal. She walked along the jury box. The defense wants you to believe this is a family misunderstanding, but misunderstandings don't involve forged documents. They don't involve text messages planning fraud. They don't involve systematic theft over months. Andrea pointed at Riley. That man saw his aging mother as an opportunity, as a resource to exploit. And when she refused to be a victim, he tried to paint her as confused, senile, vindictive. But Chloe Morrison is none of those things. She's a woman who raised her son alone, who sacrificed everything for him, who loved him completely. Her voice softened, and he repaid that love with betrayal, with theft, with cruelty. Andrea turned back to the jury. The law exists to protect the vulnerable, to ensure that even family members can't abuse those who trust them. Riley Morrison violated that trust in every possible way, and he must face the consequences. Find him guilty, on all counts, because that's what justice demands. Richard Baxter's closing was passionate but hollow. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is a tragedy, a family torn apart by misunderstanding and miscommunication. Riley Morrison made mistakes. He admits that. But mistakes aren't crimes. Intent matters, and Riley never intended to harm his mother. Baxter walked toward the jury. Think about your own families, your own parents. Haven't you ever tried to help them manage their affairs, handle their finances, make decisions for their own good? That's all Riley was trying to do. But even Baxter seemed to know it wasn't working. The jury's faces were skeptical. The prosecution painted Riley as some kind of monster. But he's not. He's a son who loves his mother, who made errors in judgment, who got in over his head financially and made desperate choices. Baxter paused. Desperate, yes. Criminal, the evidence doesn't support that. But it did, and everyone in the courtroom knew it. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. I spent that time in a small conference room with David and Patricia, drinking bad coffee, not talking much. When my phone rang with the message that the jury had reached a verdict, my hands started shaking. We filed back into the courtroom. Riley looked terrified. Vanessa wasn't there. She'd stopped coming after her testimony. The jury entered. I studied their faces, solemn, certain. Has the jury reached a verdict? Judge Morrison asked. We have, Your Honor. The foreperson, a woman in her 60s, stood. On the count of wire fraud, how do you find the defendant guilty? Riley's head dropped. On the count of elder financial abuse, how do you find the defendant guilty? On the count of identity theft, how do you find the defendant guilty? On the count of forgery, how do you find the defendant guilty? On the count of real estate fraud, how do you find the defendant guilty? 5 guilty verdicts, on every count. Riley was crying. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder. I sat perfectly still, feeling nothing and everything at once. Judge Morrison addressed the courtroom. Sentencing is scheduled for 2 weeks from today. The defendant will remain in custody. We're adjourned. The gavel fell. I walked out of the courthouse into cold January air. Media was there. Cameras. Questions shouted at me. Mrs. Morrison, how do you feel about the verdict? Do you have any message for your son? Do you regret prosecuting him? David and Patricia flanked me, guiding me to David's car. Once inside, I finally let myself feel it. I did it, I whispered. It's over. It's over, Patricia confirmed, squeezing my hand. But it wasn't over. Not really. Sentencing was still coming. The 2 weeks before sentencing were strange, surreal. I went back to work at the library, tended my garden, had dinner with Patricia and book club friends. But everything felt different, like I was moving through water, like the world had shifted slightly and nothing fit quite right anymore. Riley wrote me a letter from jail. I stared at the envelope for 3 days before opening it. Dear Mom, I know you probably won't read this. I know I don't deserve for you to read it. But I need to try. You were right, about everything. I was selfish, greedy, cruel. I let Vanessa's influence and my own desperation turn me into someone I don't recognize. I don't remember the moment I decided it was okay to steal from you. Maybe there wasn't one moment. Maybe it was 1,000 small compromises. 1,000 times I chose what I wanted over what was right. I think about Dad sometimes, about what he'd say if he could see me now. He'd be ashamed. I'm ashamed. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just want you to know that I finally understand what I did. The pain I caused. The trust I destroyed. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I love you, even though I have no right to say that anymore. Riley, I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe not. But for now I needed to heal. And healing required distance. The sentencing hearing was on February 2nd. The courtroom was packed. Media, victims, supporters on both sides. Judge Morrison called the hearing to order. Before I impose sentence, I'm going to hear victim impact statements. These give those harmed by Mr. Morrison's crimes the opportunity to address the court. Tom Henderson went first. My family suffered because of Riley Morrison's greed. My kids had nightmares. My wife had panic attacks. We thought we were going to lose our home. Tom's voice was steady but angry. He didn't care who he hurt. He just wanted money. I hope the court gives him the maximum sentence. People like him don't deserve leniency. Sarah Henderson spoke about their youngest child who still asked if they had to move. James Tucker testified about the financial and emotional impact of Riley's theft. I trusted him, considered him a friend. He destroyed that, and he destroyed my credit. I'm still paying back the money he stole using my name. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium slowly, looked at Riley. He couldn't meet my eyes. Your Honor, I'm Chloe Morrison, Riley's mother. I paused, gathered my thoughts. I raised Riley alone after his father died. I worked multiple jobs, sacrificed everything. I thought I was teaching him about hard work, integrity, love. My voice cracked slightly. I failed. Somewhere along the way, I failed to teach him that people matter more than money. That family means protecting each other, not exploiting each other. I looked at Riley. What you did to me wasn't just theft. It was betrayal. You saw my love as weakness, my trust as opportunity. You took everything I'd built, not just money, but security, peace of mind, the belief that I'd raised a good man. Tears rolled down Riley's face. Do I still love you? Yes, I'll always love the boy you were. But I grieve for the man you've become. I took a breath. I hope prison gives you time to think, to understand, to change. Because the person you are right now, I don't know him. I returned to my seat. Patricia grabbed my hand. Riley's lawyer made a plea for leniency, talked about Riley's remorse, his lack of prior criminal record, his potential for rehabilitation. Your Honor, Riley Morrison made terrible mistakes, but he's young. He has his whole life ahead of him. A lengthy sentence won't serve justice. It will just destroy a life. Judge Morrison listened impassively. Then she spoke. Mr. Morrison, please stand. Riley stood shaking. I've presided over many cases in my career, but few have disgusted me as much as this one. Judge Morrison's voice was cold. You didn't just steal money. You exploited your mother's illness. You forged documents. You threatened her when she sought justice. You showed no remorse until you were caught. She paused. Your attorney argues you're young, that you have potential. But at 34, you're old enough to know right from wrong. You made a series of calculated choices. You had multiple opportunities to stop, to confess, to make things right. Instead, you stole more, lied more, and blamed your elderly mother for your crimes. Judge Morrison looked at the papers before her. The sentencing guidelines recommend 6-8 years, but I find those guidelines insufficient given the scope of your crimes and the vulnerability of your victim. Riley swayed slightly. On the count of wire fraud, I sentence you to 3 years in federal prison. On the count of elder financial abuse, 4 years. On the count of identity theft, 3 years. On the count of forgery, 2 years. On the count of real estate fraud, 3 years. She looked at Riley. These sentences will run consecutively, not concurrently. Total sentence 15 years in federal prison. The courtroom gasped. Riley's knees buckled. Additionally, you are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims. Total amount $227,000, including legal fees and damages. You will have 10 years supervised release after prison, and your financial licenses are permanently revoked. Judge Morrison's gavel fell. We're adjourned. 15 years. Riley would be 49 when he got out. Nearly 50. His whole life gone. I sat in the courtroom long after everyone else had left, staring at the empty seat where Riley had been. David found me there. Chloe, you okay? I don't know, I said honestly. 15 years, that's a long time. It is, but he earned it, with every choice he made. Did I do the right thing? David sat beside me. You did the only thing. You protected yourself, set boundaries, insisted on consequences. If that's wrong, then our entire justice system is wrong. It doesn't feel right. No, it feels hard, but hard and wrong aren't the same thing. Life continued. Spring came. My roses bloomed. The library hosted a summer reading program. I started a consulting business, Elder Financial Protection Services. Patricia joined me as a partner. We held workshops at senior centers, teaching older adults how to protect themselves from financial abuse. Every workshop I told my story, not for sympathy, but to help others see the warning signs, to give them permission to protect themselves. Family doesn't mean accepting abuse, I'd say. Love doesn't mean being a victim. You have the right to say no, even to your children. We helped 47 families in those first 6 months, prevented fraud, protected savings, gave people back their power. My pain had purpose. I traveled to Ireland in May, saw the cliffs of Moher, kissed the Blarney Stone, felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. On my 63rd birthday, Patricia threw a surprise party. My book club friends, neighbors, library colleagues, Tom and Sarah Henderson and their kids. Make a wish, Patricia said as I bent over the cake. I closed my eyes, wished for peace, for healing, for the strength to keep moving forward. And as I blew out the candles surrounded by people who actually loved me, I realized something. I'd already gotten my wish. Riley wrote letters from prison, 1 every 2 weeks. I read them all but didn't respond. The letters changed over time. At first they were full of excuses, blame, anger at me for ruining his life. Then they became apologetic, begging for forgiveness. Finally, after 6 months, they became something else, reflective, honest. Mom, I'm in therapy now, court-ordered, but I'm actually trying. Dr. Sanders asked me to write down the moment I stopped seeing you as my mother and started seeing you as a resource. I couldn't pinpoint it. It wasn't one moment. It was gradual, years of taking you for granted, assuming you'd always be there, always give me what I needed. I think I stopped respecting you when you didn't fight back, when you always said yes, always sacrificed. I mistook your love for weakness. That's on me, not you. You were being a good mother. I was being a terrible son. Dr. Sanders says narcissism is learned, that I developed an entitled worldview where I believed I deserved everything and others existed to serve me. She says it probably started after Dad died, that I learned I could manipulate your guilt and grief to get what I wanted. I hate that I did that to you. I hate who I became. I have 14.5 years left here. That's a long time to think about what I've lost. Not just my freedom, but you. My mother. The only person who ever really loved me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm trying to change. Trying to become someone Dad would be proud of. Someone you could be proud of. Maybe someday I'll be that person. Even if you never see it. I love you, Mom, Riley. I read this letter slowly, multiple times, and for the first time since the trial, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe not ever, but hope that Riley might actually be learning, growing, changing. I got out my stationery and wrote back. Just a short note. Riley, I'm glad you're in therapy. That's good. Keep going. I'm not ready to have a relationship with you yet. Maybe I never will be. But I'm also not ready to completely close that door. Take this time to figure out who you want to be. Not for me. For yourself. I hope you find peace. Mom, I mailed it before I could change my mind. The Henderson family invited me to Sunday dinner one weekend. Their house, my rental property that Riley had tried to sell, was warm and chaotic. Kids running around, toys everywhere, the smell of pot roast. Mrs. Morrison, 7-year-old Emma threw her arms around me. We learned about fractions today. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Over dinner, Tom raised his glass. To Mrs. Morrison, for having the courage to stand up for what's right. You saved our home, and you taught our kids an important lesson about justice. What lesson is that? I asked. That doing the right thing is hard, Sarah said. But you do it anyway. Emma nodded seriously. Like how you prosecuted your son even though it made you sad, because it was the right thing. I felt tears prick my eyes. Yes, Emma, exactly like that. On a warm evening in August, I sat in my garden, my real garden, at my real house. The roses were in full bloom, red, pink, white, yellow, Robert's favorite. I thought about the past year, everything I'd lost, everything I'd gained. I'd lost my son, but I'd found myself. I'd lost my savings, but I was recovering it slowly. $45,000 in restitution so far. The rest would come over the years. I'd lost my illusions about family, but I'd gained real community, real friends, real support. Patricia came over with wine. We sat together in the twilight, not talking much, just being. Any regrets? She asked eventually. I thought about it. About Riley every day, but about prosecuting him, no. Good. We sipped our wine. What would you tell someone in your situation? Patricia asked. If they came to one of your workshops, I considered. I'd tell them that love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. I'd tell them they have the right to protect themselves, even from family. Especially from family. Would you tell them it gets easier? No, because it doesn't. Not really. You just get stronger. Patricia smiled. Look at you, 63 years old and finally learning to be selfish. Not selfish, I corrected. Self-preserving. What's the difference? Selfish is taking more than you need. Self-preserving is protecting what's yours. I got a call in September from David Thornburg. Chloe, I have news. The property buyers settled their lawsuit against Riley. They're getting full restitution plus damages. That's good. And Riley's employer is pressing charges for the client account theft. That'll add another 2-3 years to his sentence. I felt a complicated mix of emotions. He deserved consequences, but the pile-on was hard to watch. There's something else, David continued. A journalist wants to write an article about your case, about elder financial abuse. She wants to interview you. I don't know. Think about it. Your story could help a lot of people. I did think about it, and eventually agreed. The article ran in the Columbus Dispatch in October. Local woman prosecutes son for elder abuse, a story of courage and justice. They used a photo of me in my garden, looking strong, dignified. The response was overwhelming. Letters, emails, phone calls from people who'd experienced similar situations. Thank you for speaking out. You gave me courage to report my daughter. I thought I was alone. I wasn't alone, and neither were they. On Thanksgiving, I had dinner with Patricia's family again, but this time I brought something new, a photo album I'd been working on, pictures of Riley as a child, happy memories before everything went wrong. I want to remember the good parts, I explained to Patricia. Not just the end. That's healthy, she said. He was a good kid once. He was, and maybe someday he'll be a good man. But that's his journey now, not mine. We looked through the photos. Riley at 5 covered in mud. Riley at 10 holding his first place science fair ribbon. Riley at 18 graduating high school. I felt sadness, but also gratitude for those years, for the joy we'd shared before it all went wrong. As I write this, it's December, almost a year since Riley's arrest. I'm sitting in my living room, my real living room, the house I still own, the life I rebuilt. Tomorrow I'm speaking at a conference on elder financial abuse, sharing my story with professionals who work with vulnerable seniors. Next month, Patricia and I are expanding our consulting business, hiring 2 more people, developing curriculum for banks and financial institutions. My pain has purpose. My story helps others. That matters. Do I think about Riley every day? Do I miss him? I miss who I thought he was. Do I regret prosecuting him? No, not anymore, because I learned something important. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. You can want their redemption while maintaining your boundaries. You can hope for reconciliation someday while living your life now. Love without respect is worthless. Family without integrity is meaningless. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their choices. The house Riley tried to steal was never the one I lived in anyway. And the life he tried to take from me, I built a better one. That's my story. That's my truth. And I hope it helps someone out there recognize the warning signs. Set healthy boundaries. Remember that protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. What would you do if your child betrayed you this way? Would you have the strength to choose justice over guilt? Would you put yourself first, even if it meant sending your own child to prison? Comment below and let me know. Have you experienced something similar? How did you handle it? Thank you for following my story to the end. I'm Chloe Morrison, and I'm no longer a victim, I'm a survivor.